Hello, thanks for coming to the session. My name is Chang. I'm currently on a career break, formerly a product manager at Netflix. I hope you all are doing well during this crazy time in shelter in place and really start enjoying it in your own way. If you ever heard kids screaming, crying in the background, just know that it's a normal part of my life now. So I'm very glad to have the opportunity to speak to you via a product school recorded webcast. And I do hope that you take something away from this session and at least you have some fun over the next 30 to 40 minutes. So the topic today I'm going to share is introverts in product. You might be wondering, what does that mean? What exactly do you expect from the session? So I'm going to tell you that. But first, I want to clarify that I'm not intended to encourage you to label yourself or anyone else. Because as we all know, introverts versus extroverts are just one of many ways in which we categorize personality types, and that it's not a binary, but really a spectrum. So I'm also not going to be laser focused on just introvert as one type, but rather use introvert in product, which is who I am, as an example. Use my own story to convince you that whatever personality type you are, or wherever on that introvert extrovert spectrum you fall, you can develop your own brand and be successful in product in your own way. Let me break it down a little more. The following takeaways are what I really would like to drive home over the next 30 to 40 minutes. I'll be happy to take them away. First, I want you to know how to develop better self-awareness to really see and understand better who you really are. And second, I want you to be more yourself, be someone else less, and really be proud of yourself more. And then I want you to find and harness your unique strengths and superpower, and then develop your own brand and product around that superpower that you identified. I believe these are important and very relevant in helping you either transition into product if that's what you're working on, or be even more successful in your career as a product manager. I believe that is because it has been helping me a lot personally in my own journey, and I do want to share them with you. So that's what the talk today will be about. If that's what interests you, buckle up and follow along. So, as always, like in any presentation, I'm going to tell you more about myself. But instead of talking about my resume, which I believe you can easily look up on LinkedIn, some of you might have, instead, I'm going to talk more about my journey because I want to relate the key points I want to convey with my real experience and help you better understand where I'm coming from. Part one, childhood. First, I want to take you all the way back to when I was a little kid. So I was born and raised in an average family in Taiwan. And there is my mom and dad, and I have a sister who's 2 years older. We're not that too far apart, obviously, but honestly, when we were little kids, my sister and I just did not get along super well. And the main reason was that she and I were very different. So first, my sister, she grew up to be always a model kid. She was always top of her class academically. She's always likable. She speaks very well. She's outgoing and friendly. She seems always happy wherever she is. And she's very popular with all her friends, classmates, teachers, and all the relatives. She probably won almost every accolade and awards you can possibly think of. She's literally a rock star. So for me, in contrast, I was seen as a bit of a weirdo. I was awfully quiet. I did not speak at all in front of people I don't really know. I probably had one or two close friends in different stages of my life, but I didn't make many. I actually enjoyed being alone. I did not like to go to friends' party as much, but rather stay home, either reading or playing chess game with my dad, or creating stuff or playing my Lego bricks. And plus, I was super sensitive to people's words and reactions, and I found myself constantly thinking about those things, which actually made me appear to be very unhappy. So my parents, they definitely loved my sister and I, both of us, right? But they also couldn't help but compare and start worrying for me. And even myself started to wonder why I was different and whether there was something wrong with me. And a reflection, because at the time I just couldn't quite describe my personality. I couldn't describe what I was. I couldn't describe in clarity with confidence what I like and dislike, what I'm good at and not good at. So I was, in short, not self-aware. And I know how painful it was from a very young age. Without self-awareness, it was just painful and challenging all the time. So now I want to pull from my story for a second and have a discussion with you about self-awareness. I'm not sure how much my childhood story resonates with you so far, but all of you probably realize by now that what I describe, who I was as a kid, was more like an introvert personality, right? But I only learned about this more when I was much older in my adult life, when people just started talking about it more, introverts versus extroverts. And then there was this Myers-Briggs test that I took, which confirmed my personality type. And then I read about Susan Cain's book, Quiet, The Power of Introverts. That book, I don't know how many of you have read it. I highly recommend, regardless whether or not you're an introvert. It helps you understand introvert better. After all of these, I can finally describe who I am. I started developing the self-awareness more, and it felt great. It was liberating. I started to accept more who I really am. I started to embrace my unique quality. I started to understand what I'm good at and what I'm not so good at. Right. So, question for you: are you self-aware? Can you describe your personality, who you are, what you like and dislike, what you're good at and not so good at, in clarity and with confidence? And regardless how self-aware you are, how can you get better at it? So here are some tips to share. My tips are: compare less, reflect more, and get feedback. Let me share with you what I meant. Compare less with others. Because when you compare with others all the time, you focus more on other people's qualities. And as a result, you focus less on your quality, which is actually more important. Say you see someone else who's very, very great at delivering the passionate talk, and you think, oh, I don't have that. Too bad. I wish I could be like him. Or you see someone else who's really at bringing energy to a group. You think, I don't have that. It would have been great if I had that quality as well. But then, over time, you just got so consumed by the desire to chase other people's quality, and that you forget to pay attention to who you really are. You forget that you might actually have some strengths and advantage qualities that the person you look up to might not even have them. So compare less, reflect more. Reflection is a powerful tool. That's how I encourage you to spend more time with yourself and regularly reflect on your day, your week, your months, or year as they go by. Right? Think about what to be thankful for, what you did great, what's not so great, why, and what you can do about them. You can get better. Right? So as you do more of these routinely and make them a habit, you'll start seeing the pattern. And that's how you get to know yourself much better. And I can share with you that I have been doing self-reflection every single day at the end of the day for a very long period of time. I forgot when I started, but I can tell you that it has been helping me a lot. over time and developing that better self-awareness. And just in general, also kind of my mental health. So reflect more. And lastly, get feedbacks from others, right? I want you to compare less with others, but do get feedback from others. It's a powerful tool as well. If people want to give it to you, right? People around you want to give it to you. It's a gift. Make sure you take it. Even if they don't, make sure you ask for it. But when you do get feedback, don't fall trap to just seek validation, right? Seek both positive and constructive feedback. Be open-minded, right? And be ready to learn with your growth mindset. It's a powerful tool because there are things that other people see more clearly than yourself. And just like self-reflection, you might find good patterns in the feedback given by different people, and that's how you grow. That's how you learn about yourself. That's how you grow. To share some of my personal experience, some of you might know Netflix is a company known for its feedback culture, where we constantly give each other feedback. And initially, it can be intimidating. I was given direct and blunt feedback. It was like, wow, really? But over time, I got used to it and I benefited. I found myself benefiting from it a lot. And so looking at that, I can't even describe how much, I learned from those feedbacks and how much it helps me understand my strengths and weaknesses and help me grow over time. So get feedback, it can be uncomfortable at times, but trust me, it's worth it. So compare less, reflect more, get feedback. That's how you get better as self-aware. All right, so now let's go back to my story. I want to take you into my school life. So without knowing much about my introversion, I managed to survive, right? And I lived with my introversion, undescribed introversions in my childhood anyway. And, into my junior high school and high school life. And the funny thing is that in reflection, especially in reflection, the older I grew, the better I seem to be doing, right? Without knowing why, I just did better academically. I started playing lots of sports, made more friends. I just seemed more open up, right? And I think partly is because just organically, without you knowing it, just know yourself better as you grow up. But then I think the environment I was supposed to definitely matters. So I went to this high school. It is one of the best high school in Taiwan, but what's unique about it is that it's an all-male school. It was all the guys, right? There was no girl. And you might be able to imagine in a class without girls, all guys, high school age, what happened, right? So we go wild and crazy. So I try to fit myself in. I go wild and crazy like them as well. So that probably influenced me a lot. But deep down, of course, I was still very much an introvert. But of course, that was not the problem. The problem was that in that environment, I was not very proud of myself. I remember that I constantly looked at my peers and thought, I'm nothing like them. I wish I could be more like them. Right? I admire those who are gregarious, outgoing, can very easily organize large events and bring people together. Those who, easily got to know many girls from other schools, and they seem to be very popular. I'm nothing like them, and feel bad. I felt bad about myself. I was still unhappy. But again, in reflection, I have no idea why I wanted to be someone else so bad when I was actually doing fine, right? I mean, I did well academically. I participated in extracurricular activities in my own way. And yeah, I actually did get to know some girls, right? And, ultimately in college, I had a girlfriend. So I defined why I wanted to be someone else. I think I could have been happier if I just try to be myself more? Which is a discussion point. I want to again pull ourselves out of my story for discussion on yourself. So I want you to take a moment to think about, who do you aspire to become? Who's your role model, or who are your role models? Think about each one of them. Is it something that really kind of resemble your personality? They're just much more successful where they are compared to where you are. Or is some of your role model very, very, fundamentally different from who you really are? And I wonder whether you do ever feel like you can never reach it just because you're so different. For instance, I know as product managers, there are quite a few kind of iconic role models in our industry, say Steve Jobs, right? Or Elon Musk. Within the product manager, they're strong, unquestionably product leaders who are both, visionaries, and not only do they talk about their visions, but they're also relentless in pursuing their vision and really, realize their visions, right? I know how it is, because in my whole life, prior to the point of getting better at being myself, I have been aspiring to become the type of person who are much more successful and great, but they're just not quite who I am. Of course, it's always good to have role models you aspire to become, right? That's how you grow. That's how you get better. But sometimes having the wrong role models might not do any favor for you. Sometimes might work against you. The good news is that, if you look carefully across all different successful persons, there is not only one profile, right? There's not only one profile of a successful person. There is not only a single profile of a successful product manager or product leader in the industry. There are many, many, many types. That is to say that I believe strongly that you can also define your own type of a successful person you aspire to become. You can craft your own path and lead yourself to success in your own way. So now the question is, how do you be yourself more? How do you be proud of yourself more? And again, I just want to share with you some tips that personally worked for me over the years, and see if that helps you. First, I want you to reflect on some past events, whenever that was, when you were kids, when you were in school, in your career, where you succeeded or you won, but it was kind of unexpected by others initially. Say you might be an underdog, or you just didn't look anything like a typical person who would usually win or succeed in that event. But you won anyway, just be the way you were. And the reason why I'm asking you to reflect this is because I want you to develop that self-confidence that you can actually do well by just being you. For me, as an example, back in the school life, I was nothing like a good student. There was even a teacher in the beginning of the new class semester who saw me, and he came to me and say, "Johnny, be careful, because you look exactly like that bad kids I'd experienced before. So don't make trouble in my class." It took me a while to prove to him that I did not intend to make trouble, but I also could do very well in class. He saw it later on, but he had this stereotype. Or in my product management career, I was nothing like a typical profile of a successful PM who really is really good at inspiring people in front of the crowd and really own the room and be very gregarious and all that. But regardless, at least I'm confident that most of my product career, my cross-functional partners still see me highly as a great product manager, right? Just by being the way I was. So I'm sure you have that as well. Think about this. And second, for role models, look broader and look closer. Your role model don't have to be someone that's iconic or famous, right? Because there's only so few of them in the world. And if you have that small of a sample size, it's hard to find someone who resemble who you really are, your personality. So look broader across the industry, look broader around you, look closer, right? Maybe your manager is a good role model. Maybe the leadership on your team, or it doesn't have to be a product manager. It can be a leader in another functional team that you look up to, or even someone that you met at a conference last week who seemed to share similar backgrounds and experience and personality. Role models, it doesn't have to be just one. Find role models that fit your personality, your unique personality better. It will actually help you a lot. And finally, it's important to be unapologetic about your own values, big or small, even if some of those values seem different from those around you. It's not about right or wrong, because it's about what's really you. I mean, give me just very small, simple example. I really don't like beers, but of course, most of my guy friends do, right? Not surprisingly. And in the early days, you were like, come on, Johnny, be a man. Who doesn't like beer, right? You're coming out with us drinking a lot of beers. So initially, I was embarrassed for who I was, for the fact that I didn't like to drink beer. So I forced myself out to drink with them. But say, if we go to a party in 2 hours, or at the end of the party, you'll find me carry the same bottle of Heineken, 70% full, right? Because I just didn't like it. And as I learned to be myself more, I stopped doing that. And my best friends were okay, right? Those who are not okay are no longer my friends, and I feel great. And even if there are someone new who I just met who says something that, come on, Johnny, be a man, I was like, nope, I'm a man without beer, right? You need to have that confidence. You need to stick with your own value. That's how you be yourself more. Be confident, find the right role model, stick with your values. All right, now I want to take you back to my story, into my career life. So anyway, I studied in high school. I also studied in college in Taiwan before I came to the US for graduate school, where I studied computer science. And in less than 2 years, I graduated, and I officially started my career in Silicon Valley as a software engineer. So in reflection, it was a great job. I enjoyed being a software engineer a lot. I got paid decently well at the time. And my life as a software engineer was great because there was a lot of flexibility in my schedule, and the work-life balance at the time where I was great, right? But nonetheless, a few years into my job, I started to wonder whether it was really the right role for me. I'm not sure whether that was the role. I'm passionate about the role I wanted to be in the rest of my career. So I started looking around, and I came to learn about this role as a product manager. The more I looked at it, the more I thought that was exactly what I wanted to do. So, but what happened was that it came my struggle. I first thought that I'm nothing like the product managers I knew at the time, because they all have great kind of MBA backgrounds. They came from top MBA programs. They know very well about the business, but most importantly, their personality are nothing like mine. They were outgoing, gregarious, and very, very, very well spoken. Right? They seem powerful every time they talk. In contrast, I came from a computer science background, and I spoke English as my second language. It's sort of a disadvantage in a way. And not surprisingly, as an introvert, I just wasn't all that influential and powerful in front of a crowd. So I have this self-doubt. can I really do this, right? Can I even get a job into product? Even if I'm lucky enough to get a job, can I be successful at all? So fast forward to today, in reflection, I'm really, really glad that I tried. Man, was it a tough journey. It absolutely was. First of all, it took me many years after I made my mind to finally transition to ultimately land my first job at Yahoo. It probably was about 3-4 years, if not longer. And I probably failed more interviews than all of you at this point. But then I finally landed the product role at Yahoo, right? But after that, it was not the end. It took me tons of trial and error and failures and occasional quick wins to gradually kind of learn and grow into a better product manager bit by bit over time. And then that exposes me to just more opportunities and bigger impacts, right? Into a virtuous circle, if you will. So if you look at where I am, I'm definitely not super successful, right? I'm not considering myself a super successful PM in the industry, but what I can tell you with confidence is that I'm a much better version of myself compared to myself 10 years ago. I'm a much more successful PM compared to myself when I just joined the product role. And that's all that matters, right? You don't compare with others, you compare with yourself. And make sure you continue to be on the journey to success. Journey, not the destination. And you ask me, how did I do that? Well, of course, in addition to, lots of passions, lots of hard works, right? I can tell you that one thing that really helped me get through my challenges, obstacle is my superpower, right? And that was the superpower was how I did it. Now, going back to discussion time from my story, think about, for you, what are your unique strengths? After being more self-aware, being more confident about yourself, you should know better, right, where your strengths are and your weaknesses as well, of course. And over the years, what I learned was that while it's important also improving on your weaknesses, it's even more important to make sure you double down on your strengths. I'm not asking you to stop investing on your weaknesses, but I'm just asking you to look at your strengths and probably even invest more, relatively more, on harnessing your strengths. To recognize your strengths and use them more in your life, your career. As a PM, I know we talk about return on investments all the time, ROIs, right? I believe strongly that, your strengths is where the higher ROIs are. Try to think about this. And, you just use an example. I love Pixar animation. Anyone? And I hope you heard of this movie called The Incredibles. It's one of my favorite. And in Incredibles, there is this Elastic Girl and her husband, Mr. Incredibles, right? And for Elastic Girl, would you rather her, if you want Elastic Girl to get better, would you rather her to be even more stretchy and more elastic, or you wish her to have a little bit of muscle from Mr. Incredibles? I think it's the former, right? This is what I strongly believe. So question, how do you harness your superpower? Let me share some tips. Step one, list your strengths, of course, your weaknesses as well, so that you can actually build a complete profile of yourself and look at your strengths. You know what you're relatively better at. The second step is to also think about your passion. First step is think about what you're good at. Number two is think about what you like to do, what makes you tick, what excites you. Say, do you love to dig into data? Do you love to tell story? Do you love to drive the teams and get things done in execution? And then step three is to start looking at them together, step one and step two, and overlay your strengths with your passion and find the intersection. Because what you are good at plus what you love is very likely going to be your superpower. And we're not done yet. After you see that, final steps is that I want you to write it down and look at it all the time, because that's going to become what you build your brand around. Say in your next job interview, try to weave that into your story when you're asked to introduce yourself. When you hit the next challenge in your job, think of it and see how you can use that superpower to help you get through it. When you again feel like you're nothing like the next person who seems to be much more successful but nothing like you, just look at it and just know, right, that you can also be successful, but in your own way. You don't have to be like him, in your own way, right? So here are my tips. And we're actually very close to the end of the sharing, so I want to close my story. And by closing my story, I want to answer a question some of you might have by now. Like, Johnny, as a self-identified introvert in product, what is your superpower then? So I will tell you that in the final part of my story. So as you know, after much hard work, I successfully transitioned into product. And it was already about 9 years ago. And over the past 9 years, like I mentioned, it has been quite a bumpy ride. I failed a lot. I had a few wins here and there, but I'm still failing and learning every day. And over the last 9 years, I was lucky to have worked with very talented peers, and also quite a few strong product leaders that I looked up to almost every step of the way in my journey. And many of them I see as mentors, and they helped me understand myself better, right, and be better at what I do. And among all of them, I'll just mention one of them who actually said something to me many years ago that I would never forget. So I'll take you back in time a few years ago when I worked at LinkedIn. There were some new PMs just joined the team. They're great, right? I immediately could feel how great they were. Not only are they experienced and smart, talented, and driven, they're, you guessed it, outgoing, well-spoken, gregarious, they're energetic. They immediately owned the room the moment they stepped in. Even as I've prepared my whole life up to that point to be more self-confidence, to be myself more, to harness my superpower, when that happened at the moment, I couldn't help but have another episode of self-doubt and have my imposter syndrome once again. And at the time, there was this product leader who I really admire a lot in the company, and he was about to leave the company and restart his own business the third time in his life. He has been a successful serial entrepreneur. His business was acquired by LinkedIn. And anyway, we had this very well chat over coffee, and I mentioned this frustration to him. And then this was what he said to me in response, almost word by word. He said, "Johnny, I don't know if you know how good you are at what you do. You have a very unique ability to simplify the chaos. That's what they don't have. That's what you have, and that's what the teams need the most. A unique ability to simplify the chaos." And after that, I reflected a lot, and I was super happy, not only because it was a compliment, it was primarily because I think he's right. Because throughout my life, when I was a kid, at school, different roles in my career, what's consistent was that I was always highly logical. I was able to think and analyze very deep into things, and I'm able to synthesize large, complex information and situations and quickly structure them into simple steps, insight, or plans for teams to follow. Logical, analytical, and structured. That is my superpower. So I want to turn this to you. It's your turn to harness your superpower. I want you to be self-aware by comparing less, reflecting more, getting feedback. I want you to be yourself, develop self-confidence, look broader and deeper and closer for your role model that fit better for you. I want you to seek with your value and identify your superpower at the intersection of your strengths and passions. Harness it, use it more, build your brand around it. Thank you.